Hi, my name is Taylor, and I'm going to be presenting on China, more specifically the Chinese tea culture. And the reason why I chose this topic was that I recently saw a post from one of my friends that they had included a Chinese tea ceremony as part of their wedding. And I was just curious, I wanted to learn more. I will say I am not a native Chinese speaker, so I'm going to do my absolute best with pronunciation. But if I do mispronounce any words, I apologize. All right, so let's get into it. China is located in the eastern part of Asia on the western side of the Pacific Ocean. It is the largest country in Asia. I wanted to give a brief history as it pertains to tea. So, the earliest known physical evidence of teas is from the Han Dynasty in 202 BCE. And it was during this time that there were improved picking and processing methods of wild tea. So, we saw that the taste became more refined. And then the first cultivation was between 53 and 50 BCE on Ming Mountain, where many Buddhist monasteries were located. And just a fun fact, but the way that tea spread from China to Japan was actually through Buddhist monks that had come over to study Zen Buddhism, and they brought back tea seeds with them. And then during the Jin and Wei period, tea became more popular. We were seeing upper class scholars, monks, royals all drinking tea. And the tea culture or the art of tea began during the Tang Dynasty, and that was when the Grand Canal was completed. So the Grand Canal was the main transport from northern and southern China, and we saw a huge spread of tea once it was completed. And looking at the background of this slide, pictured is a work called The Classic of Tea by Lu Yu, which was the first known monograph on tea, and it's probably the most famous works on tea ever done. And then finally, the Song Dynasty saw the emergence of tea houses, and during that time, tea had become a staple of daily life, and tea was now considered the national drink. A little bit about the climate and geography. So there are five different climate zones in China and four tea regions. So the Xinan is the southwestern tea region. Hunan is the southern region, and southern China is hot and humid most of the year. And then south of the Yangtze, we have Jiangnan, and that region has four distinct seasons, plenty of precipitation, and two-thirds of the total tea output comes from that region. And then finally, the northernmost tea region, Jianbei, which is north of the Yangtze, has the lowest temperatures. So you're seeing slower growing rate, but it does make the leaves sweeter. So there's a very distinct taste from tea from the north. There are some differences between northern and southern tea culture. In northern tea culture, you're going to see lighter teas, maybe a jasmine or a black tea, large sips, and simplicity and informality. While southern tea culture has thick, concentrated teas like an aged white, intricacy and elegance, and then distinction of tea utensils. So that would be like green tea is served in glass cups, black tea in purple clay teapots, or red tea in porcelain. And then the gong fu ceremony has its whole unique set of utensils, which we'll get into later. It is also tradition in the South to warm the teacup before pouring so that you're not losing heat once the tea is in there, and it's supposed to give it a better flavor. So, as I mentioned earlier, tea houses emerged during the Song Dynasty, but they weren't just for drinking tea. So, you saw different categories of tea houses. Some were for listening to music, some were for socializing and conversation, some had food and alcohol, or some were for playing chess, storytelling, prostitution. So, there's a whole variety of different types of tea houses. And the oldest known tea house that is still in use today is called Guanyin Pavilion in Pingshan Town, and it's 300 years old. And in general, we're seeing a more modern version of tea houses come around. They have a new Chinese style and they're tailored to a younger crowd. So you're going to see a more photo friendly aesthetic and it's also conducive as a workspace. So kind of think the tea house version of a Starbucks. Three of the tea ceremonies are going to be the Gongfu tea ceremony, which it has precise tea making techniques and proper usage of teaware. It's a very technical ceremony, and we'll get more detailed with that in the next slide. There's also the Wu Wo tea ceremony, in which participants bring their own teaware and equality is emphasized. Each person is going to take turns making the tea and then passing it out, so you end up trying everyone's tea. And then the wedding tea ceremony, where the bride and groom serve tea to their respective families, and it's symbolizing respect, gratitude, and the union of the two families. And that's what's pictured here. And you can see that traditional clothing is worn, the etiquette is to be kneeling before your elders, and relatives will present gifts such as the red envelopes. And it's either going to be filled with cash or jewelry. And if you receive jewelry, you're supposed to put it on right then. All right, so the Gongfu Cha ceremony is one of the most traditional ways to brew Chinese teas, and it literally means making tea with skill. So you can see it pictured. There's a specific set of utensils that you need. For the Gongfu tea set, you need a teapot or a gaiwan, a cha hai, and teacups. And then the tray is called a cha pan and the cha dao are the set of utensils. You're also going to need tea leaves, of course, and a kettle. And if you look, you'll see that it is there are smaller brewing utensils than in Western style brewing. So it's going to be a more potent flavor because there's a stronger leaf to water ratio when you're brewing it in this way. So, as I mentioned, it is a technical ceremony. There's a lot of steps to it, and you're going to begin by making sure you have a clear space. Every person is going to have their own setting, and then you'll start by passing around the leaves to smell it before it's brewed, and then pre-warm the brewing vessel, fill the teapot with the leaves, rinse the teas, and then the first round is going to be discarded. Then fill the teapot with water, pour tea into the chai hai, and pour each individual cup. And you're going to do that slowly, and you can go back and forth, but you want to make sure that everyone is given the same amount, and then everyone can enjoy. And you're going to repeat this process over and over, increasing your steeping time. And when you're done, you're going to smell your empty cup, and then you might smell your neighbor's cup and see if it's different. And then you'll give thanks to the host. There is an etiquette for these ceremonies. For example, the guest of honor is going to be sat to the left of the host, and it's actually inappropriate to sit directly across from the host. But if someone has to, it's typically going to be a child. Elders and teachers are going to be given priority in seating, and then women are given precedence. Men are going to hold their fists left over right while women put their palms together to make a bow before receiving the cups. And then the tea is served with both hands, offered to elders first, and the guest should receive the cup with both hands. So using both hands is a sign of respect and gratitude. And then there is a way to thank your server known as kowtow or a finger tapping. And you can kind of see it in the background of this slide. But if your server is younger than you, you're going to tap one finger once. If the server is your peer, you're going to tap two fingers twice. And if the server is your senior, you're going to tap your fist three times. Now, if this was a very formal ceremony, it would be more appropriate to nod or actually say thank you as opposed to doing the finger tapping. Other do's, you're going to smell the tea, you want to take small steps, small sips, and you don't want to spit out the tea or smoke while drinking. So the significance of the tea ceremony is that it is a cultural tradition to show respect, gratitude, and family unity. And the act of preparing and presenting tea with care is considered an art form representing mindfulness and attention to detail, which we saw specifically with that Gong Fu Cha ceremony because it is so intricate. But beyond the ritual of the ceremonies, it provides a space for conversation and for connection and for bringing people together. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you learned some fun things about the Chinese tea ceremonies.